Friends and family are remembering a Las Vegas celebrity known affectionately as the Old Man on the television show Pawn Stars. Today, 77-year-old Richard Harrison was laid to rest.
Richard, the Old Man. Harrison built more than a pawn shop. He built an empire. But he paid a huge price for it. He went from poverty and heartbreak to business collapse, and finally, millions. But after his death, that fortune didn't unite his family.
I got a call at 4-something in the a.m., and I didn't want to believe it.
It sparked shocking betrayals and even a bitter court battle between mother and son. How did the old man's wealth become the source of so much pain? And will the Harrison family ever recover from the fight over his fortune? Join us as we unveil how the old man left behind a fortune that makes his family cry. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. Pawn Stars is widely regarded as one of the most successful and profitable reality television franchises in history, dominating cable ratings for over 15 years. The show and the shop are famous at a global scale, but it was far from being an overnight success. Richard Harrison and his son Rick built it through decades of hard work, long days, and the kind of business instincts that only comes from experience. Richard was a grumpy yet lovable character on the hit show. But beyond that, he was a man who turned his hard work, expertise, and wit into an empire. With his sharp tongue and no-nonsense attitude, he quickly became a fan favorite almost instantly when the show debuted on the History Channel in 2009. But long before Pawn Stars became one of the network's most successful programs, Richard had already built the foundation of his fortune. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop in Las Vegas, Nevada, is where it all started. From the very beginning, the shop was a 24/7 operation. There was nothing flashy or glamorous about it, but it became a lifeline for people looking to buy, sell, or pawn items of value. As the years went by, the shop gained a reputation for its honest transactions expertise, and not to mention the wide range of historical and unique items that came through its doors. Richard earned his nickname Old Man in his late 30s due to his stern demeanor and appearance. But in spite of that, his work ethic was completely unmatched. For instance, from the first day the shop started until his passing, he didn't miss a single day of work. Even at 77 years old, Richard had no plans to retire, and his dedication to the shop and to his family never wavered. Then came Pawn Stars, the show that catapulted him into limelight. It started as a simple reality show idea, but quickly became a cultural phenomenon. Viewers loved the mix of history, humor, and family dynamics. The show became the most watched program on the History Channel within 3 months of its debut. With nearly 3 episodes filmed over the years, Pawn Stars turned the Harrison family into household names and made the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop a must-visit spot for fans traveling to Las Vegas. As a key figure on the show, Richard earned $15,000 per episode, and with the show's massive success, bringing in $3 million per episode for the network, it's no surprise that Richard's net worth climbed to $8 million by the time of his death. Beyond the show, his wealth also came from decades of running the pawn shop and his knack for spotting valuable items. His legacy was one of hard work, sharp business sense, and the ability to turn even the most unexpected items into profit. But how exactly did Richard Old Man Harrison build such a fortune? Has everything been so rosy? Building wealth through troubles. Many people knew the Old Man as a wealthy TV star, but few know the tears behind the fame. Few know that Richard had a life story full of twists and turns long before he became a television icon. Richard was of Irish descent and was born in a family with modest means. His early life was shaped by hard work, struggle, and resilience. His grandson, Corey Harrison, has mentioned family lore, claiming they were related to U.S. Presidents William Henry Harrison and Benjamin Harrison. though Richard himself reportedly didn't place much importance on that connection. When Richard was just 1 year old, his family moved to Lexington, North Carolina. Life in the small town was, of course, far from glamorous, and the Harrisons struggled to make ends meet. Richard did attend Lexington High School, but not only did he not finish, he didn't even proceed to senior year, dropping out almost immediately to help support the family. He was only 14 years old when he began driving a school bus, parking it at home each night, and waking before dawn to pick up children for school. For this demanding job, he earned only $5 or $6 a week. Even as a teenager, Richard had already developed the work ethic that would later define him. When he was 17, Richard's life took a huge turn. While attending a barn dance, he met Joanne Rue, the daughter of prominent county judge Joseph Rue, and they quickly fell in love and married in 1960. But before tying the knot, Richard found himself in serious trouble. He stole a car and, after being caught, was given a choice by a judge: prison or the military. Richard chose the United States Navy, a decision that would shape his future in profound ways. He enlisted in October 1958, and shortly after their marriage, Joanne became pregnant with their first child. But that also came with problems. Their daughter, Sherry, was born with Down syndrome, a challenge that deeply affected the family. They later had 3 more children: Joseph, Rick, and Chris. Facing the need for medical benefits to care for Sherry, Richard left the Navy in February 1962, only to re-enlist 14 months later. Tragically, Sherry passed away when she was just 6 years old, a heartbreaking loss that stayed with the family forever. Without any surprise, life in the Navy wasn't all smooth sailing. Richard spent 14 of his 20 years deployed at sea, away from his family. He once said that was the only thing he didn't care for. Despite the hardships, Richard remained committed to his service, driven by a deep sense of responsibility. One of those responsibilities was his family. When Richard retired from the Navy in 1979, he and Joanne faced a new challenge. Joanne had built a successful real estate business, and Richard joined her as a part-time employee. For a while, they were thriving, but the economic downturn of the early 1980s, combined with skyrocketing mortgage interest rates, caused their business to collapse. They lost nearly everything, including $1 million in savings. With only $5,000 left to their name, Richard and Joanne packed up their 3 sons and moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, in 1981 to start over. It was in Las Vegas that Richard's business instincts and grit began to shine. With their last bit of money, he and his son Rick opened the gold and silver coin shop in a tiny 300-square-foot space. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. Over time, they moved to a larger location and expanded their business, eventually obtaining a license to buy and sell second-hand goods. But Richard and Rick had bigger dreams. They wanted to open a pawn shop, which required a special license in Las Vegas. At the time, the city only issued 1 pawn license for every 50,000 residents, so the Harrisons had to wait until the population hit 250. When that finally happened in 1989, they opened the gold and silver pawn shop just 2 miles from the Las Vegas Strip. From there, the business grew steadily. By 2005, Richard and Rick were loaning out about $3 million annually, earning $700 in interest income. The pawn shop became a hub for gamblers, collectors, and history buffs alike. Jewelry, sports memorabilia, and rare items with unique stories filled the shelves. Richard was known for his sharp eye and no-nonsense negotiations. He could spot a fake in seconds and wasn't afraid to walk away from a bad deal. His years in the Navy had taught him discipline, and his years of hardship had given him wisdom. Then everything changed. The History Channel debuted Pawn Stars, turning the family business into a global sensation. The show's mix of history, humor, and family dynamics made it an instant hit. Within 3 months, it became the highest-rated program on the network. For Richard, the fame was unexpected, but he embraced it in his own way. Known for his cranky yet lovable personality, he often played the role of the grumpy patriarch. Behind the scenes, though, he was deeply involved in the business, often arriving at the shop before anyone else and staying late to make sure everything ran smoothly. The success of Pawn Stars brought the family incredible wealth. The shop went from seeing 70 customers a day to thousands. By 2012, it was attracting 3,000 to 5,000 visitors daily. Tourists lined up to meet the Harrison family and see the store that had become a piece of pop culture history. Richard earned a lot from the shop, significantly adding to his growing fortune. By the time of his death, his net worth was an estimated $8 million. But Richard's fortune wasn't just about money. It was about the values he passed on to his family. He taught his children and grandchildren the importance of hard work, honesty, and resilience. Richard Harrison had serious wealth, but who would inherit it? Unexpected inheritance saga. When Richard Old Man Harrison passed away in June 2018, family, friends, and fans paid their last respects to Richard Harrison on July 1st at Palm Northwest Mortuary in Las Vegas. The funeral included both a public viewing and a private service for family and close friends, recognizing the fact that Richard had become a public figure whose death affected millions of viewers who had welcomed him into their homes for nearly a decade. He left behind a legacy that stretched far beyond the walls of the gold and silver pawn shop. But, as with any family fortune, his death also raised questions about who would carry on his work and benefit from the empire he built. Richard's estate, valued at an estimated $8 million, was laid out in his will. Surprisingly, his will wasn't as straightforward as many expected. Somehow, people knew about his will before, and in it, he mentioned his wife and his 3 sons, Rick, Joseph, and Christopher, as beneficiaries. However, Richard made a shocking change just 1 year before his death. In a revised version of the will, Richard intentionally removed his youngest son, Christopher, from the list of beneficiaries. In the updated document, he wrote, "I would like to express my love and affection for Christopher Keith Harrison. However, for the purposes of this will, I have intentionally and with full knowledge failed to provide for him and his issue." That's legal language, but what it means is that the old man did that on purpose, and he didn't want anyone to think it was an accident. When someone gets written out of a will like that, it's because something serious happened. One doesn't accidentally disinherit their own child. It's easy to see why. Christopher was never on Pawn Stars, not even as a guest. In fact, Corey Harrison, Rick's son and the old man's grandson, said in an interview that he hadn't seen his Uncle Christopher in over 20 years. 20 years without contact is not just a family disagreement or a minor falling out. That's a complete estrangement. The inheritance was divided between the old man's widow, Joanne, and his sons, Rick and Joseph. Christopher got nothing, and when reporters asked the family about it, they simply called it a private matter and refused to elaborate. This decision left many fans, and even some family members, puzzled. Why would Richard cut his youngest son out of the will? What had happened to lead him to make such a bold move? Unfortunately, Richard never revealed his reasons, and the details behind this choice remain a mystery. Whatever the case, it was clear that he had put a lot of thought into the distribution of his estate. To this day, they've never publicly explained why Christopher was cut out. Rick was the most involved in the business, so he was also named executor of the estate, giving him control over his father's assets. Rick, who had worked alongside his father since the pawn shop opened in 1989, was deeply affected by his passing. He called Richard his hero and credited him with teaching him the value of hard work, honesty, and humor. For Rick, continuing the family business wasn't just a responsibility. It was a way to honor his father's memory. Under Rick's leadership, the gold and silver pawn shop has remained a thriving business and a must-see destination for fans of Pawn Stars. But Richard's passing didn't just impact Rick. His grandson, Corey Harrison, also felt the weight of his grandfather's legacy. Known to fans as Big Hoss, Corey literally grew up in the pawn shop, learning the trade from both his father and grandfather. Corey often spoke about how much he admired Richard's work ethic and business savvy. After his death, Corey vowed to carry on the lessons his grandfather had taught him, both in the shop and in life. Richard's impact on the business was undeniable, but his influence on his family was even greater. He taught them to value hard work and to never give up no matter how tough things got. These lessons carried the family through difficult times, from the early days of the pawn shop to the challenges that came with fame and success. His family continues to honor him by running the business he built, sharing his values with the next generation, and keeping his memory alive through the show that made him a household name. Richard's wife, Joanne, played a more reserved but equally important role in the family. For the nearly 6 decades that she was married to him, she supported him through the ups and downs of their journey. From their early struggles in real estate to their eventual success in the pawn business, she stood by his side every step of the way. After Richard's death, Joanne remained an important figure in the family, serving as a source of strength and wisdom for her children and grandchildren. But that didn't last for too long. The inheritance left behind soon caused an even bigger rift than the family could handle. The unexpected court battle. Rick was doing everything he could to keep the ship running. What he didn't expect, however, was for his own mother, Joanne Rue, to take him to court over family assets and the ownership of the gold and silver pawn shop. A report by USA Today showed that she went as far as filing a civil lawsuit in Nevada State Court. It's not so pretty to be sued by one's own mother over family property. The lawsuit named Rick, the shop, Harrison Properties, Jorick Properties, and others as defendants. The money issues strained their relationship. His mother accused him of breaking an agreement. She pointed out that she was married to Richard the Old Man Harrison for almost 60 years. When he passed in 2018, she inherited his 49% share of the shop. Joanne said that in the early 2000s, when she was in the hospital and had just come out of a coma, Rick had her sign papers giving up her 51% ownership of the pawn shop. She claimed that she wasn't fully aware of what she was signing at the time, but she signed anyway. This situation naturally painted Rick in a very bad light. His fans, who admired him as a family man, were completely dumbfounded by the claims. It seemed like he had turned against his own mother for money. His mother went on to say that she hadn't received proper records about more than $500,000 in cash and silver that she believed her husband had before he died. She also mentioned that Rick stopped her payments of $225,000 that her husband used to send. When asked what she wanted, Joanne said she wanted the court to bring back all these payments. It was reported in one article that Rick's mother, who was over 80, had many health problems. Her care cost up to $150,000 a month. Joanne even filed a temporary restraining order to stop Rick from selling family assets. This order would also prevent Rick from moving money or reducing her share in the family business. She wanted the court to put her property under a trust that Rick couldn't control. Fans worried that Rick's money could be at risk. Did Rick respond to these claims? He did. He said that all the accusations labeled against him were not true, and he believed his 81-year-old mom was being influenced by others. He further shared that he only found out about the restraining order from news reports. He said he tried to contact her many times in the past months, but hadn't been able to reach her. Rick added that one of the companies being sued was even owned by his mother. So why would she be suing her own company? Joanne Harrison passed away at the age of 85 in a Las Vegas hospital. The news came as a heavy blow to the Pawn Stars figure. Rick had only recently paid tribute to Adam, and now the devastating news of his mother's passing hit him with the force of a storm. Fans sent tributes and consolation, but only Rick understood the meals he went through. Richard, the old man, Harrison worked his bones to build his wealth, and he left significant fortune for his family. But instead of bringing them together, the inheritance seems to be tearing them apart. Fans are watching to see how long this goes on for. Did someone persuade Joanne to sue her own son? What will happen to Pawn Stars if the family is divided? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.